Hello everyone and welcome back to our channel. Today we will be discussing Victorian literature previous year questions. If you are watching from any other university apart from DU, this can benefit you as well since these are the most important questions of very prominent authors. The answers will be on the screen for you to screenshot. Now let us get straight into it. Question number 1. Write a short note on the form and structure of How Do I Love Thee. This is Sonnet 43 from Elizabeth Barrett Browning's Sonnet from the Portuguese. It follows the Petrarchan form, an octave and a sestate, but Browning blurs the visual volta, letting the emotion flow continuously instead of turning sharply. The famous anaphora, I love thee, gives the poem its counting structure, moving from the spiritual to the everyday to the eternal. The tension between the sonnet's tight form and the overflowing emotion is the real takeaway here. Screenshot the answer on the screen for the full structural breakdown. Question number 2. Discuss the religious allusions in childhood's faith and lost saints. These lines fuse romantic love with religious devotion. Childhood's faith and lost saints suggest both innocent early belief and personal grief, likely referencing Browning's own losses. Essentially, she redirects the intensity she once gave to faith and to loved ones now lost towards her beloved. It elevates romantic love to something almost sacred. The full explanation is on your screen now. Question number 3. Discuss the significance of Camelot in The Lady of Shalott. Camelot represents the world of action and society that the lady is cut off from. She only sees it through her mirror and weaves it into her tapestry, never directly. When Lancelot appears, she finally looks straight at Camelot, breaking her curse. Ironically, she only arrives there in death, and Camelot receives her merely as a spectacle. Question number 4. Write a short note on the themes of marriage in Great Expectations. Dickens gives us several failed or compromised marriages. Miss Havisham's abandonment at the altar, Estella's loveless marriage to Drummle, and Mrs. Joe's domineering hold over Joe. In contrast, Joe and Biddy and Wemmick and Miss Kiffins represent quiet, genuine domestic happiness. The larger point, marriage in this novel is corrupted by ambition and class, while simple loyalty is what actually works. Question number 5. How does Eliot use water imagery, especially the river Floss? The river Floss symbolizes time, fate, and uncontrollable passion. It's tied closely to Maggie's emotional nature, especially in the boat episode with Stephen Guest, where the river literally carries her along with her feelings. The final flood destroys the mill and reunites, then kills Maggie and Tom, showing nature overwhelming the rigid, judgmental society of St. Ogg's. Question number 6. Comment on the lines. She thanked men. Good, but thanked with anybody's gift. This is the Duke of Ferrara's core complaint against his last Duchess in My Last Duchess. That she thanked everyone equally instead of treating his ancient name as superior. It reveals his obsession with rank and control and sets up the poem's chilling implication that he had her killed for this failure to show him exclusive deference. Question number 7. Write a short note on St. John Rivers in Jane Eyre. St. John is Rochester's foil. Cold, disciplined, ruled entirely by religious duty rather than feeling. He suppresses his love for Rosamond Oliver and proposes to Jane not out of love but usefulness for missionary work in India. His near success in persuading Jane shows how self-denial can become its own form of control. Question number 8. Write a short note on the Read Room in Jane Eyre. The Read Room is where young Jane is locked up as punishment and where she has a terrifying, possibly hallucinatory experience. It symbolizes confinement, injustice, and repressed passion, and critics often link it to Bertha's later imprisonment in the attic. It's also the origin point of Jane's lifelong refusal to accept unjust treatment. Now, after this, let us begin with the 20 marks questions. Question number 9. Discuss the intersection of gender and power in Lady of Shalott. The lady's existence is entirely mediated. She only sees Camelot through a mirror and weaves it into her tapestry, never engaging with it directly, echoing the restricted position of Victorian women in art and public life. Lancelot's arrival disrupts this, and when she finally looks directly at Camelot, asserting her own desire, she is punished with the curse and death. Even in death, she is reduced to a spectacle for Camelot's men. Question number 10. Is the lady's decision to leave the loom defiance or temptation? The strongest answer treats this as both. I am half sick of shadows, shows genuine pre-existing dissatisfaction supporting defiance. But the sensuous description of Lancelot right before she acts suggests his allure is the real trigger, supporting temptation. Tennyson fuses the desire for freedom with romantic desire, reflecting Victorian anxiety about female desire generally. Question number 11. Explain dramatic monologue with reference to My Last Duchess and its gender dynamics. A dramatic monologue involves a single speaker addressing a silent listener, unintentionally revealing their true character through their own words. In My Last Duchess, the Duke believes he is simply explaining reasonable complaints about his last wife, but readers see a portrait of controlling jealousy, culminating in the implied confession that he had her killed. On gender, his real complaint is that she wouldn't reserve her warmth exclusively for him, treating her instead as property to be tamed, just like the bronze Neptune statue he admires at the end. Question number 12. Critically examine The Mad Woman in the Attic in Jane Eyre. Bertha Mason works on multiple levels as a Gothic plot device, as a site of colonial and racial anxiety per post colonial critics like Spivak, and as Jane's psychological double per Gilbert and Goober. Acting out the rage Jane must suppress, Bertha's fire ultimately clears the way for Jane and Rochester's more equal marriage. But the novel never gives Bertha her own voice, which in itself is the most troubling part of this reading. Question number 13. In what ways does Great Expectations reflect Victorian society? The novel interrogates what gentlemen really meant in Victorian England. Pip assumes his rise is funded by genteel wealth, but it's actually financed by the convict Magwitch, collapsing the idea that gentility equals moral worth. Add in the novel's treatment of crime, transportation, empire, and class anxiety through Jaggers, Wemmick, and Miss Havisham, and you get a full panorama of Victorian social contradictions. Question number 14. Analyze Maggie Tulliver's journey from innocence to experience. Maggie starts as a brilliant, passionate child, constantly punished for not fitting feminine expectations. Her journey moves through intellectual hunger, religious renunciation, and finally romantic entanglement with Philip and Stephen. The drift downriver with Stephen destroys her reputation regardless of her actual innocence, and Tom's rejection of her is the tragic core of the novel. The final flood is the only place where she and Tom can be reconciled. Eliot suggesting society offered no real space for women like Maggie. Question number 15. Discuss the significance of social class with reference to two texts. Comparing Great Expectations and Jane Eyre works well here. In Dickens, Pip's gentility turns out to rest on a convict's money, exposing how arbitrary class distinctions really are, while Joe Gargery represents true moral worth despite low status. In Bronte, Jane's position as a governess, genteel but economically dependent, drives her insistence on being Rochester's equal, which the novel only resolves once. Jane inherits money and Rochester loses his power. Both novels ultimately argue that real worth is moral, not social. These are all the 15 questions that we had in store for you today. Thank you very much, and if you liked this video, please like it, share it with your friends, and subscribe to our channel. We'll see you again in the next one.